Have you ever wondered who's more dangerous when it comes to the hidden world of manipulation, control, and psychological influence, men or women? It's a question that makes people instantly uncomfortable, yet deeply curious, because whether we admit it or not, dark psychology isn't just something studied in books, it's something we live through every day. Think about it: every sharp word that makes you second-guess yourself, every silent glare that cuts deeper than a scream, every clever twist of a story that makes you doubt your own memory. These are tools of dark psychology, and the truth is, both men and women use them, but the way they use them, and the impact they create, are often strikingly different. Men might be seen as the aggressors, the ones who intimidate, dominate, and enforce power through fear. Women, on the other hand, are often portrayed as the subtle architects of influence, using charm, silence, or emotional precision to bend reality. But who really uses dark psychology better? Who has the sharper edge in this invisible war of the mind? Today, we're going to explore this question step by step. We're going to look at how men and women navigate manipulation, how society shapes their strategies, and what happens when these tactics collide. By the end, you'll see dark psychology not as a battle of strength, but as a battle of strategy where the answer may surprise you. So sit tight, because once you understand this, you'll never look at human behavior the same way again. Before we decide who uses it better, men or women, we need to get one thing straight. What is dark psychology at its core? Dark psychology is the art of using human emotions, instincts, and vulnerabilities for personal advantage. It isn't about being physically stronger or smarter in a traditional sense. It's about knowing how to influence, deceive, and control. It's not always shouting, slamming doors, or obvious aggression. Sometimes it's the smile that hides a threat. Sometimes it's the silence that makes you spiral. Sometimes it's the carefully chosen words that make you doubt your own mind. Dark psychology is built on four powerful elements: manipulation, reshaping someone's reality without them realizing it; deception, creating illusions to guide their choices; control, seizing power without physical force; exploitation, turning another person's weakness into an advantage. Now here's the twist: men and women are both capable of mastering these tools, but the way they deploy them is not the same. Men often rely on dominance and direct confrontation. Women, on the other hand, often lean into subtlety, emotional leverage, and timing. Neither approach is inherently better, but each comes with unique strengths, and that's what makes the comparison fascinating. Because dark psychology isn't just about who shouts the loudest, it's about who can change the game without anyone realizing the rules have shifted. So let us step into the battlefield of the mind and see how men and women each play their part. When we think of manipulation or control, many people immediately imagine a man in a position of power. History, media, and even our everyday experiences often reinforce this picture: the boss who intimidates his employees, the partner who controls with anger, the leader who inspires loyalty through fear. And there's truth in that. Men often use dark psychology in direct, forceful, and external ways. Their methods tend to mirror physical dominance even when no physical force involved. Here's what that looks like: intimidation, leveraging body language, tone of voice, and physical presence; authority framing, relying on hierarchies, rules, or logic to manipulate; aggressive control, using fear, anger, criticism, or controlled silence to compel compliance; grand narratives, telling bigger stories about success, loyalty, strength, or tradition to position themselves as protectors or leaders. The key to men's approach lies in visibility. Their manipulation is often more noticeable, more confrontational: the slam door, the sharp tone, the commanding presence. But visibility is a double-edged sword. It can be effective in the short term, but it can also breed resistance. People eventually notice the manipulation, and some pushback. This is why men's dark psychology is often powerful, but risky. It relies on dominance staying unchallenged. And here's where women step in with a completely different strategy. If men often lean on directness and dominance, women tend to master the art of subtlety. Where men might raise their voice, women lower theirs. Where men might dominate space with presence, women quietly reshape the air around them. This doesn't make their methods weaker. On the contrary, it often makes them more difficult to detect and therefore more enduring. Here's what women's approach often looks like: emotional precision, knowing exactly where the pressure points are to spark insecurity, guilt, or desire. Silence as a weapon, retreating into silence to force the other person to chase answers. Validation, charm, and disguise, using warmth, kindness, or vulnerability to lower defenses before applying influence. Social strategy, manipulating through networks, whispers, alliances, and subtle shifts in group dynamics, where reputation becomes a battlefield. Gaslighting with finesse, planting seeds of doubt slowly so the other person questions their memory, judgment, or sanity. The strength of women's dark psychology lies in invisibility. Unlike the overt dominance of men, women's strategies often move beneath the surface. You don't realize you're being influenced until it's already done. This makes women's approach less risky in the long run. People rarely notice they're being manipulated until much later, if ever. That's why women's methods are often described as psychological chess rather than brute force. And here's the crucial point: in the war of minds, invisibility is often more powerful than intimidation. But the real question is, when these strategies collide, direct dominance versus subtle precision, who actually wins? So, what happens when these two styles meet? The raw dominance of men versus the invisible precision of women. The clash isn't just about gender, it's about strategy. Imagine this: a man tries to assert control through direct force, raising his voice, demanding compliance, setting rules. A woman, instead of resisting with equal aggression, stays calm, uses silence, or gently shifts the emotional frame. The man believes he's in control, but she's quietly steering the interaction underneath. This is the secret edge of women's dark psychology. They often win not by fighting head-on, but by letting the opponent defeat themselves. On the other hand, when men's force meets weakness, it can be overwhelming. A strong, intimidating presence can silence resistance quickly. If the target isn't self-aware, men's tactics can trap them in a cycle of fear and compliance. But here's the catch: men's methods are more noticeable. The moment someone realizes they're being dominated, the resistance grows, or they seek escape. Women's methods are harder to detect. By the time the target recognizes the manipulation, they may already be entangled emotionally, socially, or psychologically. It's like comparing a storm to a slow poison. The storm is terrifying, destructive, and immediate, but the poison lingers, spreads, and reshapes everything over time. And yet it's not that one gender always wins. Context matters. In environments where hierarchy and visible authority rule, men's strategies shine. In environments where relationships, trust, and subtle influence matter, women's methods dominate. But if you strip away the setting and look at pure effectiveness, the edge often leans towards subtlety, because power that's invisible is the hardest to fight. It is tempting to think men and women are simply wired differently when it comes to dark psychology. But the truth is more complicated. Much of these strategies aren't born purely from biology. They're shaped by society, culture, and survival. For centuries, men have often held the visible positions of power: kings, generals, CEOs, political leaders. With authority comes permission to be direct. Their dark psychology naturally evolved into intimidation, dominance, and overt displays of control because society allowed and often rewarded those methods. Women, however, historically lived under stricter social constraints. Direct dominance wasn't always available or safe. They had to operate within tighter boundaries, relying on indirect influence to survive and thrive, from subtle persuasion in households to carefully shaping reputations in communities. Women developed psychological strategies that could bypass direct confrontation. Think about it. A man raising his voice in public might be seen as strong. A woman doing the same might be dismissed as emotional or hysterical. So instead of meeting force with force, women became experts at power without visibility. Society, in many ways, trained the genders differently. Men learned to value strength, dominance, and external authority. Women learned to value subtlety, intuition, and internal influence. This doesn't mean one is better by default. It means each adapted to the roles society carved for them. And when those adaptations collide today in workplaces, relationships, or politics, we see the clash of direct dominance versus invisible influence play out in real time. But here's where it gets even more interesting. In the modern world, those boundaries are shifting. Women now hold more direct power than ever before, and men are increasingly expected to master subtle influence. The lines are blurring, and that changes the balance of who uses dark psychology better. In today's world, the old rules are breaking down. Men are no longer the sole gatekeepers of authority, and women are no longer confined to silent influence. Both genders now wield tools from each other's arsenals, and that makes the game far more complex. Think about modern workplaces, relationships, or even online spaces. Men can't always rely on pure dominance. Intimidation may still work in certain corners, but it also risks backlash, exposure, or even legal consequences. A boss who yells today risks being recorded and publicly shamed tomorrow. Women, meanwhile, can now mix subtle influence with direct authority. A woman in leadership isn't limited to quiet strategies. She can openly command while still deploying psychological precision. At the surface, the digital age amplifies this even further. Social media, for example, is a realm where reputation, influence, and narrative control reign supreme. And in this environment, women's historically subtle tactics shaping perception, building alliances, framing narratives fit like a glove. But men have also adapted. Many have embraced charm, persuasion, and emotional intelligence, learning to cloak dominance in diplomacy. What once looked like brute force now often wears the mask of charisma. So who holds the upper hand today? The answer isn't as simple as men or women. Instead, it's about who can blend the two approaches. The real masters of dark psychology are no longer tied to gender. They are the ones who can switch seamlessly between direct force and invisible influence. That said, the world does tilt slightly towards subtlety. Why? Because visibility can be exposed, recorded, and resisted, but influence that remains unseen still flows under the radar. In modern dynamics, the slow poison often outpaces the storm. Dark psychology may look like power, but it always comes with a price. And here's the irony: the very tools men and women use to manipulate others often circle back and harm them in different ways. For men, the cost is often tied to aggression. Living in a constant state of dominance breeds isolation. If you intimidate people long enough, they may obey you, but they rarely trust you. The mask of authority becomes heavy. The anger, the control, the endless fight to be the strongest in the room wears down mental health, leading to stress, paranoia, or burnout. In relationships, men who rely too heavily on dominance often end up feared rather than loved, a hollow kind of control that collapses when fear no longer works. For women, the cost is tied to invisibility. Subtle influence requires constant calculation. Every silence, every carefully chosen phrase, every concealed emotion, it drains energy over time. Gaslighting or emotional manipulation may give temporary advantage, but it corrodes trust eventually. The very bonds women depend on for influence become fragile, living behind masks of charm or vulnerability can blur identity. At some point, the manipulator risks losing sight of who they are beneath the strategy. So who pays more? The truth is, both do, just in different currencies. Men often pay with loneliness and resistance. Women often pay with exhaustion and fractured trust. And that's the hidden lesson. Dark psychology might win battles, but it rarely wins peace. After all this exploration, we come back to the central question. Between men and women, who really uses dark psychology better? If we measure it by force, men often dominate. Their strategies are direct, overwhelming, and quick to shift the balance of power, like a hammer. Their methods strike hard and fast. If we measure it by stealth, women often excel. Their influence flows quietly, shaping outcomes without confrontation. Like a scalpel, their methods are precise, often unnoticed until the result is inevitable. So who's better? The real answer depends on the battlefield. In situations where control must be obvious and immediate, men's tactics carry the edge. In situations where control must be lasting and hidden, women's tactics tend to prevail. But here's the deeper truth. If we define better as who leaves the longer mark, who shifts outcomes in ways people rarely notice until it is too late, women's strategies often win. Why? Because invisibility is the most dangerous form of power. A storm passes, but a slow poison reshapes the entire system from within. That doesn't mean men are weak players in dark psychology. Far from it, their dominance is undeniable, especially in environments that reward authority. But when it comes to subtlety, endurance, and silent victories, women often hold the sharper blade. So maybe the question isn't who's better. Maybe the real lesson is this: dark psychology doesn't belong to one gender. It belongs to whoever understands the mind deeply enough to bend it. So, after walking through the storm and the silence, the question lingers: who truly owns the battlefield of dark psychology, men or women? The truth is, both wield it with terrifying skill. Men shape it through force and presence. Women weave it through subtlety and precision. Each carries strengths, each carries costs. But here's what matters most: awareness. Because the real danger of dark psychology isn't who uses it better, it's when you don't see it being used on you at all. Think back on your life. The friend who guilt-tripped you into choices, the boss who controlled with anger, the partner who twisted words until you doubted yourself. These weren't just random moments. They were glimpses into the machinery of dark psychology at work. And once you see the gears turning, you can't unsee them. That's your power. Awareness breaks the spell. So, whether it comes as a storm or as a whisper, remember this: dark psychology only rules where blindness lies. The moment you learn to see it, you step out of its grip. And maybe that's the real victory: not who uses it better, but who refuses to be controlled by it. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, don't just let it sit, share it, think on it, and watch the world around you differently. Because the games of the mind are always being played. The question is, are you a pawn or are you awake?